My name is Danon Meller, and I was born in Split, Yugoslavia. In 1939, the war started. The Germans took over Yugoslavia. They fought. Yugoslav army fought them back, but they were stronger. They came in. They occupied Yugoslavia. My ancestors settled in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. And they lived there all the time up to the Second World War. And my father, who was one of 7 sons, he moved to Split. My mom, who was one of also of 7 children, she met my father, and they were married, and they started their life in Split. My father had to make a living, to support the family, because right away, after they were married, a year later, they had a baby, then they had another baby, and so on, four in a row. And my father opened up a little store where he bought yard goods, and he would resell the yard goods. And that's how he started making a living. Well, we kept the laws, the Jewish laws, and we observed the holidays. And Saturday was our Sabbath, and we observed that. My father would close the business the most important day of the week, when people did a lot of business. But he didn't care to make that extra money. He closed the business on Saturday, no works. And we were average people. My father made enough to support his family. And we had a nice life, as I remember. I was a happy child, and I was very well liked by neighbors. I used to do them favors, go to the store for them, and they used to give me something, I used to like fruit. They used to give me an apple. So I had a nice childhood. I went to first grade, just first grade in Split, and then the war started. In 1941, the German occupied Yugoslavia, but Italians and Germans, they were allies, and they divided. Germany, they took the big cities like Sarajevo and Belgrade and Zagreb, and Italy, because we were across Sicily, across the Adriatic Sea. We were sort of neighbors, so they took us. Germany wanted to enter Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia had their own army, and they fought them for about 6 months. They didn't let them come in. As a matter of fact, my father went into the service, and he fought the war, but little Yugoslavia couldn't compete with Germany. They were a big power, so they, after 6 months, they took Yugoslavia over. It was terrible. Everybody was unhappy, worried, scared, Of course. My father left our house, and he went to the army, and he was in the war, and we didn't know if he would come back alive. We were we were left just with my mother at home. They were marched by thousands of them. They came in and with tanks, and in the first couple of days we were a little scared. We stayed in the houses, but then they said, "Don't be afraid. Life goes on," and they put up their own rules and regulations, and we had to do what they want us to do. But they did not bother the Jewish people. They did not start to collect the Jewish people. They let us live. Some young girls, they made friends with the generals, lieutenants. They became boyfriend and girlfriend. You would see them walking together. Other people were worried what's going to happen, how the war will turn out. So they let us live. They did some nasty things, you know, like sometimes there were on the window posters, Jews are not welcome here, or something like that. But still, we survived and we were able to live. They wanted everyone to speak Italian, to learn Italian. And they put in their own teachers in schools. They felt that they took that part over and they want to make that part of Italy. They were the conquerors. They were just poor people, you know. We had to take whatever they did. My father and my brother and I, we started walking towards the synagogue. And we came to a square, a big square. And we saw a lot of commotion going on. And we weren't sure what it was. But then we stopped for a moment and we realized right away that there were fascists beating up people. They made it like a fire, burning books and holy books and Torahs and everything. And so they were beating them with the bayonets. People were falling down and everything. And so we realized what it was. And we turned around and went through the back streets. And we went home. The black shirts, they are, in Italy, they had two kinds of, one was army, one was fascist, black shirts. They wore black shirts with the belts and a knife like this, you know, and they were the ones, they were real bad guys. They were the ones that came in the city and they wanted to please Hitler. We were very scared. We were hoping and praying that the war would turn around and everything will be okay. So we lived the best we knew how. And then about end of 1943, the Italians surrendered to the Allies. And the war started turning around. Meantime, the Germans, they were so angry at the Italians for surrendering. And so the Germans started chasing them, killing them, wherever they could find Italian people. One morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning, some of the neighbors and some people came and they were banging on our door. Mr. Danon, Mr. Danon. I remember I was asleep and I was in a shock, you know. Everybody got up, people were asleep. They were saying, the neighbors were saying, the Germans are coming in the city. And that people knew already, because this was quite a few years after what Hitler was doing. They knew that they were after Jewish people, and they told us, the Germans are on the border, coming in the city. And so my father and my brother, and there were other people, they weren't even Jewish, just people that they wanted to fight Germany. And they went to the mountains, to the partisans. So my father and my brother went to the partisans with other people, and my older sister, who was not quite 16, she went also to fight. And so it was, after they left, the Germans marched in, occupied Split and the surroundings. And we were very scared and worried. We had an apartment that was long. You entered, this is the front entrance, and you go straight through to the back room. And I used to go to the back room. There was a window. I would jump down and go over the fence. I was practicing. If the Germans would come on the front door, not banging at the door, I would go straight through the hallway to the room and jump. And I did that twice. Of course, the Allies were bombing because the Germans came in the city, so they were bombing the Germans. So the bombs are falling every day. There were American airplanes. They would come by 200-300 at a time, and they would be flying up high, and you could just hear the motor. They looked like birds. That's how small they looked. They were very high up in the sky, and they would go, ooh, 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 the motor would, you hear the motor. You could hardly see the planes. And they would throw bombs. Anyhow, a month later, I heard from an acquaintance that she heard through somebody else that they said in another month there won't be another Jew in the city. My mother said, where can we go? We can't go nowhere. Nobody wants us. Where are we going to go? And so I said to my mom, Mom, if you don't want to go, I'm going to take Esther, my sister, who is 5 years younger than I am. I'm going to take her and we're going to go to the farm ourselves. I took a little knapsack. I put a little blanket in there and a sweater. So I started walking through the field, and my mom was in the window. And she started hollering, wait for me, I'll come too, wait, wait. So then she came, we stopped, and she came, just left everything, locked the door, all our belongings, everything. And we somehow got to the farm, and we came there, and the lady took us in. And she hid us for 6 months. We were there for 6 months. She gave us a little room like a closet. It was big enough to put one single bed mattress. So we were 5 people. And we all slept on this one single mattress. We were not allowed to talk. We couldn't go out. We just stayed in that room just to go out in to the bathroom. But then after 6 months, she said to us, I'm very sorry, I cannot keep you anymore. I cannot keep you. There's Germans snooping around. I'm scared. I'm very scared. She says, I'll take you. I have a cousin on an island. Middle of the night, she took us to her cousin, and we stayed there. The cousin took us in. She kept us for about 3 months. And she said, I'm very sorry. We're very scared. We cannot keep you anymore. So she said, my husband will take you during the night to the partisan in the mountains. The partisans will help you. So what can we do? Listen, we had to go. We had to go. During the night, it took us. We had to climb the mountains. And we're not, my sister, little kid, and I was a kid too, but I was more like a tomboy. So for me, it was a little easier. It was hard. You had to climb sharp mountains, stones, and everything, rough. And we got to the mountains, we got up top, and we came to where the partisans were hiding. And the man left us there, and then we stayed with the partisans. It was a rough going there, very, very scary, and you always, during the day, you had to hide, and during the night, we walked. They had 200-300 people. We all walked in a line, one at a time, and there was a partisan soldier in the front of the line with a gun, and we all walked. We walked the whole night. When we would come to a place, as soon as it would get a little lighter, we had to stop and find a hiding place. There was very little food. 1 week, we went a whole week with no food, no water, nothing to eat or drink. And it was very hard. My mom, she just said, I want to die. She laid down on the ground. She said to me, promise me, Sarah, you'll take care of your sister. Try to save her. You save yourself. Let me alone. I want to die. So I begged her, please, please, Mom, try to go on. And she lay there. She didn't want to move. And we continued moving on. And when we came to the next stop, we stopped. When it started to get light, we stopped and we started to hide. I begged the leader, please, don't go. Maybe they're going to bring my mom. Stop. And so it was. Somebody picked up my mom and they brought her. And so I knew that if my mom didn't live, I didn't want to live. One day, a partisan came. We didn't eat anything for about 7 days. He came with a piece of fat, like pork, this big piece. There were a couple of hundred people, you know. He had a knife. He grabbed this pork like this. He kept cutting slices this wide and cutting little squares like this. And everybody got one little piece. That was just fat, white pork, you know. And my mom, Jewish people don't eat pork. So my mom said, not me. I'm not going to put that in mouth. I'll die first. And then she said to me, but you have to eat my portion. So she made me eat 2 little squares. And that could have been, you know, the point that gave me strength to survive. But we managed, and we kept going. And we were going down the mountain on our hands and knees, you know, sliding down and going. And my poor sister, she was all cut up, bloody legs and arms and everything. And I was holding to her like for my life. I was going with one hand and feet and my legs, you know, trying and holding my sister. And one day we came to a little, at the end of the mountain, there was a little island. And we all went on that island. It was called Vis. And there was a rumor going around that the British and the Americans, they're going to help us. They started coming and parachuting food and ammunition. They were waiting for a signal from the British or the Americans that they're going to come in the middle of the sea, but nobody came. So they said to us, now we have to climb up again because it's very dangerous to be there near the water because the Germans will see us. So we had to go up again. What a job, what a deal. And we did that 7 times, 7 different nights. And there was no boat. And one night we went down, they got signals, they were like with the lamp, you know, they were giving them signals. And so it was, the ship was coming. And the ship came in the middle of the Adriatic Sea between Italy and this island, which was Yugoslavia. And we went down, and the partisans only had one rowboat that 12 to 15 people could squeeze in there. And who's going to go in first? We were a couple of hundred refugees people that they wanted to, you know, send to the British and Americans. They were there. And my mother said to the one partisan, I'll give you everything I have if you would put my 2 kids first. And so it was. My mother said to us, take off your dress, take off your sweater, take off your shoes, because that was a big deal. You know, pair of shoes. People didn't have shoes. They were walking barefooted, all cut up and everything. So my sister and I took everything off that we had. We gave it to them. My mother took off everything. I don't know what else my mother gave them. I don't know if she had any money. I'm not sure. But we were the first ones on the boat. As we were halfway there, the Germans started shooting at us. They saw something in the ocean. But thank God they didn't get us. The partisans were rowing. They were very strong guys. They were rowing fast, and they got us to the battleship and the big warship. And the British threw down ropes, and they pulled us up. And oh my God, I was overjoyed. I'll never forget that day. I said to myself, thank God I'm saved. I knew when I was on this boat with the Americans and British, I'm saved from the Germans. As we got on the ship, the British soldiers pulled us up on the board, and they started giving us everything, you name it, chocolate bars, Hershey bars, bananas. They didn't know, cookies. They didn't know what to give us. And my mom said to me, be careful, don't eat, because you didn't eat for so long. you might get sick. And I listened to my mom. So I only ate, I think, one banana. And everything else that they offered me, I said no. And they took us to Italy, and there were a couple dispersed people camp. That's what they called it. All these people from all over Europe, refugees. And the Americans and British, they were giving them, it was a camp, they were giving them food and clothing and shelter. They fumigated us because we were in the mountains. But that day I'll never forget also, because that was horrible. They fumigated us like they're fumigating, houses or something. And we met few people that we have known from before, and they told us that they saw my father. No, first they told us that they saw my uncle, my mom's brother. And then we looked for him. A few days later, we found him. And my uncle told us that my father and my brother were in another city called Lecce that was right nearby. Then we went looking for my father, and we found my father and my brother. They were working for the American Census Bureau, because my father was a linguist, and my brother also knew few languages. My father said to us, it's such a lucky break that you came, because in 2 weeks we're supposed to go to the United States. What happened, President Roosevelt heard about all the refugees that were in Italy from all over Europe, and he wanted to do something for them, invited 1,000 refugees to be brought to the United States for like a safe haven. My father looked into it right away, and they approved us that we could go to the United States with the group. We were 3 weeks on the ship. Normally it would take not even a week. So we came with this army convoy, and we had, also was not easy, because during the time, 3 weeks that we traveled on the ocean, German planes were over us twice, 2 different times. And they had to put the screen, the smoke, and we were all choking. We couldn't catch our breath. It was terrible. That's how they hid the ships, with the smoke screen. Then finally, after 3 weeks, we were in New York. They took us with the trains, and they gave us accommodations in an army camp. It was called Fort Ontario. I was very grateful to be in the United States, and they had wonderful food there. And then they asked the people that they should do the work. Everybody had to apply for a job there, volunteer job, to cook, to clean, to do different things, Later, after a couple of months, they started paying them $18 a month, and the children got $5. So the parents got $5 for each child. And then after a month living there, the gates were open. We could go in the town, in Oswego. The people were very nice, and we started going to school. We had a lot of activities at camp. We had Girl Scouts, which I loved. They taught me a lot of good things, rules, how to behave and how to be a good person. And then we heard the bad news that President Roosevelt passed away. I happened to have been in school, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and we were all called to the assembly, and they told us, and we cried. I cried like a baby. I loved the man because he brought me over to the United States, And the war ended 1945, and they said, well, ended the war. The first thing they said, we have to leave. We have to go back to Europe. My father said, don't rush. We don't want to go first. We want to stay as long as we can. And like half of the people went, little by little. HIAS made all the legal papers for us. HIAS is a Jewish organization worldwide. They help everybody, not just Jewish people. It's a Jewish organization, but they help refugees. They give them food and money and everything. And we went with those papers. We went to Canada, and then we exited the United States, and after the day, we entered back from Canada to the United States with the legal papers, because from that day, 5 years later, we became citizens. So they said, you go to Philadelphia. It's a good city. You'll find a job there. So we came to Philadelphia. We came like about 6 families. 6 families came to Philadelphia from the camp. So we finally found an apartment, and we went to an empty apartment. We had no furniture. We had nothing. And we started our life. My mom got a job in a clothing factory. My father got a job at Stetson Hats. I got my working papers, and then I got a job. And I worked, you know, and I started to date, and I met my husband, and we were married, and then I became pregnant, and I quit the job, and I had my first baby when I was 20 years old. And then I had another one 3.5 years later, and that's how it went. And then when my kids went to school, 6.5 years later, then I had another child, my daughter. So I had 2 sons and a daughter, and I helped my husband in business. We had a restaurant, and I worked every day and raised my family. They should appreciate what they have, this great country, that they were born here and they live here. They should understand that Jewish people are same people as Christian, and they're just as nice, and they're just human, and they should not hate. Hate is the worst thing. That brought on the Holocaust. And they should love each other and all the people around them. I feel that I accomplished everything. My kids, I raised a nice family. They were accomplished, and I feel that I tried hard to do that. And that's my reward.